We shouldn't be too worried in that regard. But now, to take a shift into a different world, we want to take a look at our Imagine segment.
Sopa, Iba, Abari, Musuri, Njoo Yankare, Ade maji akunywa.
Kwa salamu zetu za Wakikuyu tunasalimiana Mulega, tuliega.
Mimi Msomali kutoka Isiolo. Tunasema mahashati, yani hali hapo. Islamu tunasema assalamu alaikum.
Kamba tunasalimiana we museo wa ingata na wa mukata.
All right, so there you have some greetings. Imagine you want to learn a new language. According to Yale, the learning institution, first of all, you can utilize tech, leverage on AI. That will really help you. Then there is something called immersion. Go into that context, all right? If you're learning Luya, go to Luya land. If you're learning Kikuyu, go to Kikuyu land and be in there. Thirdly, once you start learning, consistency is key, all right? So it's better you do 20 minutes a day, every day, instead of 4 hours once every 2 weeks, which is dangerous. Then the fourth thing that you need to do is to choose the right method for you, because we learn differently. Some people prefer in-person meetings to learn. Others want to use applications and whatnot. Pick your poison, as they say, and learn from it. And lastly, practice, practice, practice. That's the most important thing. But even as you do that, as you're trying to learn, it's better and advantageous to start early. Now, a child can learn up to 5 languages by the age of 5. And the brain, actually, a child's brain, at the age of 5, the brain has greater neuroplasticity, allowing them to readily form new neural connections associated with language acquisition. We say that polyglot, this is the person who can speak fluently upwards of 10 to 20 languages. A person who can speak actually fluently more than 5 languages or more. They also have another different name with a glot at the end of it. But right now, remember that every February 21st, a day like this, the world marks International Mother Language Day. All right? This year's theme is the place of mother languages for sustainable development. Quite a serious theme right there. The big question is, though, where does Kenya stand on matters mother tongue adoption, especially with the bulging youthful population? Right now, I'm joined by Dr. Johnston Ndunde, who's the Executive Director at Signan at SIL Global, where they work with African communities to create language solutions that expand possibilities for a better life. Dr. welcome to the show. I had a chat while we were preparing for this discussion. Yep. I asked some of my colleagues, does your son speak your mother tongue? Now, one, there was an expression of disappointment. They're like, nah, they don't. They just do English, all right? And another person was like, yeah, my daughter doesn't speak my mother tongue, and I'm perfectly comfortable with it. In fact, I like it that way. Just give me the landscape of where we are as a country in terms of our mother tongues. Are we adopting them and passing them down, or is it disappearing art?
I think it depends with who you talk to, like you have said. But I do want to say that there is a huge amount of people out there who really love their mother languages. And actually, they would be in towns like this, and they will be coming to some of our offices to say, you know what, I really want my daughter, my son, to learn our language, because I still want to go back to the village. I still want them to connect. I still want them to know where they come from. Who are they as a people? And that identity, the basic values at that community level are found in language. And so when they interact with their local languages, then actually their sense of identity develops, and they understand their roots. And so we do have quite a good amount of people that are in towns that actually still value mother tongues.
That's a beautiful thing, because I feel our mother languages have taken a hit depending on where we are coming from as a country, this issue of ism, for example, tribalism, and it sort of carries tribal languages as something that is closely associated with this tribalism issue. So sometimes there is an element of approach of carefulness around our mother tongues. Talk to me about that aspect of that unhealthy link between tribalism and actually our mother tongues in Kenya.
You know, every good thing can actually be used negatively. And so I agree with you that sometimes we have used our local languages to promote negativity. And that is there, including tribalism, including viewing certain people with certain stereotypes just because they come from different places. But actually, if you went back to the root of who you are and the values that we all have that are actually ingrained in our languages, those values have always taught us unity. They have always taught us oneness. And I think it is very important to be secure in who you are before you can actually relate to others that are around you. And mark you, by just not speaking your language or not learning it, doesn't take it from you who you are. And so you still have that in you, that this is who I am, even though I can't speak it. So we can still use that to your disadvantage and incite you against somebody else and say, well, you speak English, but actually you are this particular language group. So it is important to actually differentiate between the language and sometimes the negative use of language. And every good thing can be used negatively. But actually, if we invested in our mother tongues, we will actually start learning how to use them in a positive way.
Now, does investment look like when we talk about investing in our mother tongues? How does that look like?
It just involves describing ourselves about who we are. You see, behind every language are people. Behind every people are values. Behind every value is knowledge, customs, a repository of some richness that is so crucial for development. And if we don't harness that, then we get to a point where we lose it. This very station has actually once run a story about some gentleman in Marakwet who was conducting operations just locally. There is so much knowledge locally. How do you pass that knowledge from one generation to another? Language is that medium. And so the local language notwithstanding, it is actually one of those very powerful mediums through which people passed customs, through which people passed important information. When you want to educate our local communities on important matters of health, on important matters of life, social issues, what is important in a language is that ability to communicate. Okay? And when you are communicating from in a language that somebody is very comfortable with, you actually stir up creativity, you bring up genuineness, and people actually begin having deeper conversations because they understand the subject. But if they do not actually have proficiency in these languages of wider communication that we actually esteem, but really speak them very badly. And so we need to get back to that level of what is the best level of true communication, true transfer of meaning, true transfer of those values. That is important.
Very, very important. So sustainable development, as you say, it's being able to communicate, actually communicate development. Without communication, we can't develop at the end of the day in simple terms.
Exactly. Just think about simple health issues. And simple doctor's prescription, for example. Take 2 tablets 3 times a day. If you cannot communicate that, that person goes home and they cannot be able to take that instruction. You know what happens? You lose a life. And that is a setback in development. Think about I was in a community where they were actually using traditional irrigation methods to make sure everybody has good water. And everybody gets water at a certain particular time, and they can be able to irrigate. In there was the value of shared responsibility.
Okay.
In there was actually the value of some economic activity that they were trying to do.
Okay.
And what are they using? They are using their language. They understand their values that language carries and the cultural aspect of that. And that actually helps to stir a lot of rural development.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Dr. Ndunde,
Yes.
this is a very interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Time is always limited.
Yes.
There is fire, JKIA.
I
Pretty sure
understand.
they're using local languages also just to make sure that the fire is contained. But I'm glad we've had this discussion on International Mother Languages,
Yes.
Day. That is marked every 21st of February. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for
Thank you so much for having us here, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I like the shot. It's really nice. All right.
It is a local something, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of something. Thank you, Dr.
All right.
That is Dr. Justin Ndunde, the Executive Director designated SIL Global, and he says that languages are key for development. We take a short break right here on Weekend Prime.